Hello, folks. I'm coming at you again with a boxing video, and in the end, I'm going to throw in a political rant. But anyway, I want to talk today why today's boxers don't seem to have the male testicular fortitude that guys in the 80s and 70s and I'll say beyond or whatever and back of had. Okay, we see athletes, football, basketball, and we say these guys are better athletes, bigger and stronger than the athletes as far as basketball and this type of thing was in previous times. I don't know if that's true. Of course, you have the LeBron James and KD's, Kevin Durant's, and Anthony Davis, guys like that, 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", who are some hell of a fucking athletes, man. They really are. But these are your exceptions. Athletes, especially in football and basketball, can be an exception. But and you look at the personality of these athletes, they don't have the masculine personalities of your Michael Jordans, your Kareem's, Abdul-Jabbar, who I think is maybe after Jordan, LeBron is probably the greatest basketball player of all time. You gotta have magic in that too. But I don't see these guys today having the male fortitude and attitude that those guys had. Now maybe a lot of it is culture, but like you see LeBron, these other guys wanting to play with each other instead of killing each other. Um, and that would never have been back in the day. Maybe that's just culture. But I'm gonna tell you that this is a scientific truth. Men today have less testosterone than men from my time. I'm 54, and we had less than men from my father's time. Or let's say men down to like the Sugar Ray, Marvin Hagler era, where I had the same amount. Excuse me. Of testosterone as men from my father's era. My father's 76. Then guys like me who are somewhat younger than the Sugar Ray Leonards and these kind of people, we don't exactly have the testosterone they have, but we have much more than the young guys today. And I think this is why you see guys today as ducking, like you see these boxers today find a reason to duck each other on the level that they're doing. Um, Name clouting fighters who they know they have no intention on fighting just to build their own careers. This is a thing that men with high levels of testosterone just don't do. They're either going to fight you or they're not. Um, Modern day boxers act more like females than males. Clarissa Shields is just as tough and masculine, if maybe not more so, than a lot of our male fighters today. Now understand that boxing today,
Almost there, Nancy. 13 more minutes.
I'm gonna put it like this: in this era, like this year alone, 4 or 5 boxers died in the ring. As long as I've been watching boxing, maybe I just wasn't Maybe just we weren't as privy to it because we didn't have social media. Um, I don't think I've ever seen 4 or 5 boxers like that die. Maybe it probably was in one year. It probably was, but we just didn't know about it, hear about it. But anyway, a lot of you young guys weren't alive in the. See, I started boxing in the '70s. I started watching boxing in the '70s. The first boxing match well, I wasn't interested in it in the early '70s, and it was Muhammad Ali fighting somebody. Because I remember my grandfather. Oh, here they go again. Let's take another one. My grandfather was still calling him Clay. Um, this was like I don't know, it might have been Joe Frazier. I was about 7 years old when he fought Joe Frazier. But anyway, the first fight. But if you look at the boxers from that time, they may not have been as big, the heavyweights. They may not have been as big as these guys today, but they were more manly. Even the football players may not have been as big as a lot of the football players today, but they were more manly, had a more of a macho attitude. Maybe that's culture. Maybe that's because a lot of these young boys been raised by their mamas, no fathers around. I think that plays a part too. But also, a person's actions, masculine actions, actually help build more testosterone. Like, now don't give you. I want you guys to look into what I'm getting ready to say now. But I've heard that women who work have more testosterone than women who stay at home with the children. But I noticed even in the '70s. I'm in the '70s when I was a kid. I noticed how women when they first. Okay, my grandfather says that women first start working. Rose to the Riveter. He was in World War II. He's gone now. Rest in peace, granddad. But he said that's when it started, and I think that is like the first time it started, but it went away and somewhat, and it came back in the '70s with this women's lib. And I noticed like there weren't a lot of women bus drivers at first. Then towards the end of the '70s, there was a flood of them, and I noticed how women's attitudes started changing when they had to get out and work. Okay, they started becoming more abrasive. They started becoming less feminine to me. Now the same with men. Um, Men's attitudes is more feminine. And I think it's a combination of being raised, having your mom as a role model, and also, for whatever reason, men have less testosterone today than their fathers. Their father, that would be me and men in my generation. The men today have less testosterone, and you see it uh, in the attitude of the fighters. Everyone's scared to fight the toughest guys out there. Um, maybe I don't know. Maybe it's because there's so much money in boxing. But you know what? There's less money in boxing today than there was in the '70s. I mean, in the '80s. Sugar Ray Leonard and them guys made way more money than the top fighters today made. And if you watch the Sugar Ray Leonards, the Marvin Haglers, uh, the Alexis Arguellos, the Aaron Pryors in the '80s, the Julio Cesar Chavez, the Salvador Sanchez was one of my favorite all-time fighters. Those guys were tough. I mean, they went to it. Uh, you can say guys now are more technical, maybe, but I mean, those guys, man, they fought. They were not afraid to fight. They lay into you. I mean, those guys were action. When have you seen a middleweight like Marvin Hagler? When have you seen a welterweight? Earl Spence is kind of somewhat of a throwback, but I don't think he would have defeated a Sugar Ray Leonard or um, or even Roberto Duran, some of the guys in that era. Pacquiao is a man from the Philippines. Now I don't think they have that testosterone problem in some of these third world countries. The Philippines ain't exactly a third world country, but it's not on the level of the United States with all this technology and such. He's like a throwback to that. Um, I'm not saying that guys should get there and get their brains beat in, but I'm just saying you notice the difference in the activity level of these guys from today and in the 80s. I tuned out of boxing after the Sugar Ray Leonard era, and I only saw a little bit of the Roy Jones and guys like that. After Sugar Ray, Hearns, Hagler, Duran, the next generation of boxing just didn't hold the same fascination for me. And I just recently got back in boxing, I guess 3, 4 years ago. Uh, I saw Sugar Ray Leonard coming out the Olympics, 1976 Olympics. And me, myself, I think I started boxing in 77. And and back then, when you spar, you were in a fight. Um, I don't know the guy. I mean, the fights. Like I hear people talk about how great these fights are. Very few of the fights I've seen today are great to my standards. Like Ray Leonard, Hearns, Hagler, those type of guys that ran. The guys today don't seem to have the same type of stamina. Maybe because they went from 15 to 12 rounds and they don't train as hard because they don't have to. But guys today don't seem to have the same stamina. They don't seem to have the same punch resistance. Uh, they just don't seem to have the same type of manhood that men who boxed in the 80s had. Who, when will you ever see Aaron Pryor, Alexis Arguello duplicated? When will you ever see Muhammad Ali and all three Frazier fights duplicated? When will you see Salvador Sanchez and his fights duplicated? When will you see? I mean, just name me and those guys yesterday and today. They try to say the guys now are more technical, but not really. I don't think so. If you saw Salvador Sanchez in his fights, he was technical and brutal. He was a great fighter, one of the greatest fighters to me of all time. Even though he died young and didn't get a chance to really, yeah, I think in his body of work he proved it. But the guys today, the boxers today, with a few exceptions, I say maybe Earl Spence. Errol Spence is really his name, Errol. Um, Deontay Wilder, Andy Ruiz, Luis Ortiz, Tyson Fury, those kind of guys harken back to the old days, to be honest with you. But the majority of these fighters today just don't. Sean Porter's, but Sean Porter's a Cleveland boy. Cleveland boys are rough. I'm from Cleveland, and just rough guys. But even still, most of the fighters today, most of the athletes today, just don't have that masculine attitude. Like I said, maybe it's a lot of it's culture. These guys have been raised by their mamas, but also scientists, medical facts prove that the men today have about half the testosterone men of yesteryear. Men like me, 20th century, not 21st. I'm a 20th century man, not a 20th century, 21st century guy. Maybe this technology has something to do with it. I don't know. But anyway, tell me what you guys think about. Oh, my political rant. Okay. Um, Platforms like Facebook, YouTube, social media is a threat to the Constitution of the United States of America. Specifically, I think it's the First Amendment. the right to freedom of speech. And secondly, a lot of these people who are control of this are liberals. The Democratic Party is a threat to the First Amendment. I'll tell you why. There are forces within the Democratic Party that wants to outlaw people saying what they consider bad things about minority groups, whatever, women, blacks, Hispanics, Jews. That is because I've heard a woman in a debate say that she's more concerned with safe security rather than freedom. Let me tell you something. I don't give a fuck about Thomas Jefferson and them goddamn forefathers because they had my people slave. But I'm gonna give credit where credit is due. I think it was Thomas Jefferson who said, one of them guys said, if you this is a paraphrase, if you substitute freedom for security, you deserve neither. And this is a true statement. To me, even though America has not lived up totally to its promises, it's closer to doing so than any other country in the world. If you look at Canada and a lot of these European countries, certain things you cannot say. If you deny the Holocaust, which I don't deny it, okay, but I think a person should have a right to. If you deny the Holocaust, you can be put in prison. That's not democracy. Certain people like Louis Farrakhan and others have been banned from visiting the UK. That's not democracy. As long as you're not telling people to go out and kill groups or certain people, you should be allowed to say what you want. The Democratic Party is leaning towards being the party of a nanny party. Tell you how to live, tell you how to think. They want to get rid of. They want to alter the Second Amendment because they are afraid because of these school shootings or what have you. Let me tell you something. The day you take the weapons from the American people, you see these abuses that the police are putting on blacks and minorities and whites. Just think of how it would triple. And just think if a party like the Democratic Party comes to total power, meaning that they will always have the votes to rule. Look at how socialistic they're becoming, how tyrannical they're becoming. The Democratic Party will become the new oppressors. And you're going to need those weapons. But not only that, the Republican Party can become that.